Hello fellow FPL managers and welcome to a Game Week 29 preview and a Game Week 28 review. So we'll start off with a Game Week 28 quick review and then have a look at Game Week 29, potential double game week for a few teams. It is on the grapevine that it is going to be Manchester City and Arsenal having a double game week in Game Week 29, and apparently that news is going to come out soon, so keep your eyes open for that. We'll have a look at the team that will be going in with into Game Week 29. Also talking about my potential Game Week 31, the blank Game Week 31 plan that I'm trying to prepare for, as well as my reasoning for why I think perhaps going forward, especially if you're wildcarding, maybe the likes of having 3 Liverpool players is not the right choice. Before we have a look at the players we suggested last week, and then look at the players going forward into Game Week 29. So the player picks, the captaincy picks, and the differentials. So Game Week 28 was an absolute roller coaster ride. So Saturday lunchtime, not lunchtime, Saturday half time, I was on -1 from 5 players. So the news came out just before the Leicester City game that Jamie Vardy was injured. And even though his fixture's looking good, and I've already got Harvey Barnes, I thought, right, that's it. I did a tweet about it saying 2 things. The first thing was, so Jamie Vardy, it wouldn't have been a bad decision. Whatever you guys decided, if you've held him for this up-and-coming game against Aston Villa, that's not a terrible decision. Hopefully you had someone on the bench who could step in and did a half-decent job. If you did take a -4 and took a punt, then that's the game. And, you know, a lot of players like Calvert-Lewin and Diogo Jota actually did pretty well. And the second tweet I did about it was suggesting what players I recommended before I personally brought in Diogo Jota. So I said, have a short-term punt. So if someone like, I don't know, Iniacho wouldn't have been a good choice. But, you know, if you didn't have Calvert-Lewin, he would have been a good choice in good form. There's lots of cheap forward options out there to have a try. And I backed Jota because of Game Week 31, because of form. And yeah, it's a long-term pick as well. So even though it was a -4, it's someone that I could bring in. So that started. So nothing happened with Leicester. They got to half-time. And I looked at my scores on -1 because I took a -4 hit because I'd already done Barnes in for Traore. And then come the final whistle of the Wolves, Spurs, Everton, Man United games on Sunday, I was sat with 47 points -4 for that hit, which has turned out to be a fantastic game week. I've gone from about 980,000 to 825,000. So that's a nice little rank rise there. So just going through the team. So Southampton, I had doubts about them. We'll talk about West Ham and particularly Antonio, the person that I backed on stream and on my players to pick for last game week. I had a feeling West Ham was going to do very well against Southampton, but McCarthy's my goalkeeper. I'm not going to take that out. Liverpool, of course, Liverpool is going to be the huge talking point. You could argue that the warning signs were there when you saw the game against West Ham United, but I don't think any of us could have predicted or prepared for a 3-0 Watford win. And we cannot even say it was a defensive smash and grab from a clinical Watford side. They actually deserved the points and they played particularly well. So my hero from Saturday was Lascelles, came in. Fortunately for where I live, I was able to flick between all of the games on Saturday. And as you can imagine, Newcastle-Burnley was sort of the least exciting. I commented saying that the ball had probably been in the air more than it was on the floor. But credit where it's due to Newcastle, they were the team that looked the more likely. The team that probably deserved the 3 points more than Burnley did. But Lascelles getting a clean sheet, so that was good. Again, nothing from my midfield. Snodgrass, thank you for coming on for a very small amount of time. I was surprised to see him start on the bench, and unfortunately he did come on for just a few minutes. He's a good player. He does well when he's played, but unfortunately dropped. Ings started on the bench. A lot of FPL managers were getting frustrated this game week with the likes of Vardy's injury and Danny Ings' injury just kind of being completely off the radar. And then my Sunday boys absolutely pulled it out of the bag. You've got Fernandez, 3 bonus points and a goal. You've got Jimenez goal and 1 bonus point. You've got Jota there with a goal, assist, and 3 bonus points. Absolutely saved my game week. So that hit actually worked out. And I've already sort of pre-planned by taking that hit for my Game Week 31 plan, which I'll talk about soon. Just going into the team that I'm going to be looking at, people questioning whether McCarthy could get dropped for the Southampton side against Newcastle. I don't see it yet. He is probably going to go out for Pope because Burnley don't blank in 31 and Burnley don't blank in game week 34. So bringing in someone like Charlie Taylor and bringing in someone like Pope, even though Pope's form has been fantastic, you've got two players there that just won't blank as well, which is have. So I'm still sticking with the double defense there for Liverpool with O'Connell coming back from a blank game week. Looks like a decent side. Barnes, I'm only going to be sticking with one Leicester player for now. Captain Mo Salah, but that could change to Kevin De Bruyne. We'll talk about player picks for this game week just a little bit later. But looking at De Bruyne, it looks like he could have a double game week. So even though Salah is at home to Bournemouth, I think anytime you've got a player playing twice, it's difficult not really captaining. And Fernandes is playing against Kevin De Bruyne in the Manchester derby. Danny Ings hopefully going to be back because you're really wanting to face that Newcastle side. Could be a good week for Southampton, but people are already talking about them being on holiday mode. You know, they're not looking like they're going to get relegated. They're not looking like they're going to go into Europe. That is something that I'm going to talk about in a moment as well. Then double Wolves attack. You can see Jota Jimenez against Brighton, which is not too bad, I think, in terms of a team. Again, I'm not looking at any huge holes in this side, and I'm pretty satisfied with this team. So the 2 points that I wanted to talk about, the first one was why possibly not going forward in the future with 3 Liverpool players, and that comes to the point that I've just really touched on with Southampton, and that is it's possibly now crunch time. There's 10 game weeks left. There's 10 games left, and you've got teams fighting for Champions League. I guess you could say fighting for Europa League. I don't want to disrespect Europa League, but you know you're fighting for the Champions League and you're fighting for Premier League survival. There's always a debate in terms of form versus fixtures. Too many times I think this season I've really leaned on the side of fixtures and it's let me down. You know, we brought in the likes of Zaha when he had a good fixture run. Some people, Everton's fixture run paid off. I think it's a really big balance, but I'm leaning more towards form. And for the last 10 game weeks, actual fight to want to win the games. The reason why I backed West Ham is I said they just played Manchester City and Liverpool away from home. They've got future difficult fixtures as well. They needed that 3 points against Southampton, and you could tell that the fight, the eagerness was there. So in terms of Liverpool, I'm not saying sell them right now. I'm not saying sell them this game week. I know a lot of people have still got their wild cards. If I were going to wild card after they have won the championship, and if they were still in the Champions League, which is very, very possible, then I would possibly be going forward with 2 players, maybe even double defense, just Trent and Robertson, not the likes of Salah, because if they're still in the Champions League but they've wrapped up the title and now they cannot get this invincible title from Arsenal, then you could see more rotation. This is a prime opportunity for Klopp because there's such a young squad that the likes of new players like Minamino or Origi getting more game time. If Shaqiri comes back from injury, it just feels as though there could be a lot more rotation coming and giving those kids a chance. If you've won the title and you can't break any records and you're still in the Champions League and the FA Cup, then why wouldn't you rotate? And that comes with the idea of fight. You've got teams that want to stay in the Premier League, and they're going to really be going at it, all out. So it just feels as though it could, similar to my feelings about Man City. Man City want to cement Champions League, so I think for the next few game weeks they're going to still be pushing in the Premier League. They could go through against Real Madrid in Champions League, but it's the same situation. If they kind of wrap up top 3 and they're still in Champions League, they're going to rotate their players even more than what they used to. But it's the opposite for those teams that want to fight for Champions League, like Wolves, or they want to fight for Premier League survival, like Watford, or I would say Grealish at Villa, but I'm not really backing more the ones that are around or just above the relegations. Like maybe even West Ham players. So that's just my opinion on why I think maybe triple Liverpool, especially after they've won the Premier League title, might not be the way to go forward. Also, it's the last 10 game weeks. If you are at a very good rank that what you feel comfortable with, if you are in the top 5 500,000 and you're thinking this is a good season, you're in the top 10,000, you're thinking, right, I want to solidify my place, then albeit I'd probably keep hold of the Liverpool assets that are highly owned. But if you're outside the top 500k, what have you got to lose? You know, if I sit here and I'm 825,000 in the world, what's the point of me just hanging around this place? If I tell you at the end of the season, okay, guys, I took out Mo Salah and I finished 1.5 million, it's not the end of the world. It's 825,000 or 1.5 million. They're both not particularly great ranks. But if I take that risk and a calculated risk, and I take out Salah for someone like Sarr at Watford, who's just had a great game week, someone who's fighting for survival, hugely, very low ownership as well, against Salah, who could be a little bit too relaxed with his game time, or maybe not even get a lot of game time, then and end up finishing the season, 200k, that actually looks pretty decent. So I understand people who are trying to solidify, but the last 10 game weeks, it's kind of like all or nothing for me. The second point I wanted to point out is my plan for blank game week 31. So like I mentioned earlier, we could find out about Arsenal Man City having a double game week, but the key information, and I always say play your own game, and I this season have played a lot of early transfers. If you want to beat the price rises, that's perfectly acceptable, but for this game week I would really recommend holding your transfer just until the FA Cup's done. So we found out the result last night that Arsenal won, so I think it's Arsenal Southampton is going to blank in game week 31. You don't want to bring in a player that's going to blank in a couple of game weeks. So if you have a look at particularly my bench, I've got Snodgrass West Ham, I've got Holgate at Everton, I've got Lascelles at Newcastle. I could have 2 of my 3 subs playing in game week 31. So whoever doesn't play, I'll take them out and bring probably a Wolves player in. And then I'll look at the rest of my side. I might take a -4 for that week. But if I can field 9 or 10 players in game week 31, when so many people are going to be using their free hit, then we get to a double game week, or I believe game week 37 could be a big double game week, and I have 11 players playing 2 matches, and I choose players from teams who are fighting for survival or fighting for the Champions League. I just feel as though the point potential there is a lot higher than in game week 31, where you're going to choose a small pool of players from a small group of fixtures just so you have 11 players on the pitch. Where if you have 9 or 10 players on the pitch who are already in your side, and then you can free hit and have 11 people all playing twice in a game week, I just feel that, again, from my point of view at 825,000 rank, I just feel as though that's the calculated risk, the punt that I want to take. So that's going to be my game week 31 strategy. I'm going to really wait till I know all the teams that blank. We know that Burnley will not blank in 31 or 34, so bringing Taylor, bringing Pope, and you've got 2 players that are definitely going to play during blanks, unless they get injured or dropped. I'll just point that out. Wolves, definitely not going to blank. Bournemouth assets, you're not really going to want to bring them in, so I understand that. But Watford, people are looking at Watford now. They're not going to blank in game week 31. You're looking at 3 Wolves players, plus Sarr, plus Taylor, plus Pope. Then you've already got a good start to not playing a free hit game. So that's just my suggestion. Please let me know in the comments below what your plans are for game week 31. If you think that's a good idea or a bad idea. I just feel like the points potential for a free hit in a big double game week is a lot better than just fielding from a very small portion of players. And also, when it gets to game week 31, that would be the time when I transfer out one of my Liverpool players pretty much for the rest of the season, unless I admit it's a huge mistake. Mo Salah goes on an absolute rampage and I bring him straight back, because that's what you can do, right? Just because you decide to take out a player one game week doesn't mean that you can't just bring him straight back the next. So having a look at the suggestions I made last game week. So Jamie Vardy, injured on apparently the day before. We had no idea that he'd been injured. He was out. Danny Ings dropped injured. So these are 2 things that are out of your hands. I would have loved these 2 players to play. I had them both at that time, and the potential was there for them to get, good points, but what can you do? And then Liverpool getting battered 3-0 very convincingly, very worryingly. So not a good time for the picks, but the differentials, again, Barnes and Leicester just not doing very well there. But my two differentials here, Jota and Antonio. I even said last game week, we said on stream, people were laughing, I'm currently still getting over a gout attack. And people were joking, saying, "Hey, I want the medicine that you're on if you're going to back Antonio." But I just said I didn't have stats to back him this week. I didn't have any XG or any XGA or any shots in the box or anything like that. Every time I see him, he just looks like he puts all of his effort in. He does have a bit of quality. Just his game time was an issue, but it looked like he was in that position forward. I think he did play up front in the game against Liverpool, and I just really fancied West Ham to beat Southampton. And yeah, goal and assist. He was in my fan team. So the fan team that we created, the 50,000 pot tournament that I talked about, that we did on stream together, that actually came 89th in the tournament. We were top 100 for the game week competition, which was pretty cool. And Antonio was a huge part of that, as was Jota as well, the other pick that I suggested. And if you remember, my videos come out on Tuesday or Wednesday, so this was done before any of that Vardy issues happened, and you're going to see a lot of people saying Jota this game week. So similar to what happened last time when I suggest Barnes before he went on a good run, it's going to be the same with Jota. A lot of people are going to recommend him, so I can just take a little bit of satisfaction that I did say him, first. So going on to the players. This game week, of course, you can see a lack of Liverpool players. Talking about the points, talking about the issue that looking a bit complacent, maybe a bit tired, but we'll start with Kevin De Bruyne. It is to do with the double game week, so if it's not a double game week, I understand if this isn't going to be, the most inspiring pick. But first of all, Kevin De Bruyne, 50% ownership, 10.7 million. So strong chance of a double game week in game week 29 for Man City, and that'll be against Manchester United and Arsenal. And it's hard to recommend a City asset for double game weeks with Pep Roulette. And the fact that these difficult fixtures, well, they are difficult fixtures, Manchester United and Arsenal, but not easy ones. But not only is Kevin De Bruyne possibly City's best player, but also he's the least likely player to be dropped when he's fit. He's only been left out of the starting 11 once in that game week 5 defeat to Norwich. So if you do want a Manchester City for double game week, regardless of 50% of the game owning him, he's a quality choice for captaincy and being in your starting 11 this game week. And in terms of his stats and quality on the pitch, we all know that by now he is currently the top player in FPL. And the second player pick here is Aubameyang, 21.5%, 11 million. So speaking of double game weeks, Arsenal could have that double game week in game week 29 as well, and that'll be against West Ham and Manchester City. So Aubameyang is proving so popular that even last game week in his blank game week 28, I believe he was the third most transferred in player, meaning that there are a lot of people backing the Arsenal hitman. Despite worrying signs that he's staying a little bit too much wide when he's playing with Lacazette, regardless, one fixture against West Ham alone is pretty appealing for FPL managers. So if you can pick up anything against Man City, it's a bonus. So between the two, Kevin De Bruyne or Aubameyang, if I had to choose a captain, I'd probably captain Aubameyang because you'd expect him to get something. You'd expect him to play in both games. You'd expect him to get something against West Ham. And even if he plays 90 minutes against Man City but does nothing, that's still 4 points because he's your captain. So I would probably back Aubameyang slightly over Kevin De Bruyne, but I'd bring him in now, but I just not personally backing Aubameyang myself. But if you are and you're captaining, I think that is a really good option. The third one here, the last slot for non-differential picks here was a little bit of a tough one because it does feel like there's a rise in differentials recently. There's been a lot of disappointment surrounding Leicester of late, and I feel that the assets are still good options going forward. I wouldn't be tripling up on Leicester, especially like me, if you're not planning to free hit in game week 31, but I feel that at least one Leicester player, given their league position and fixtures, is a pretty good idea. With injuries and rotations in attack happening at Leicester quite a lot, perhaps it's best to look towards the defence. So Pereira has missed just one game all season and he's played 90 minutes in every other match. So the three Liverpool players currently occupy the top FPL points this season in terms of defenders, and then Pereira is fourth, so he's just behind the pack. And he has got games against Villa, Watford, Brighton, Everton and Palace. So in the next 5, you'd be hoping for a few clean sheets, but of course you can back his attacking potential. the likes of Vardy, Perez, Barnes, Maddison, I still think that they are good options. But for me, Pereira has arguably been Leicester's most consistent performer this year, and he is their second best scorer of points this season, second behind Jamie Vardy. So moving on now to the differentials, and there are a few reasons why I'm backing Matt Doherty. So first of all, he doesn't blank in game week 31, and triple Wolves right now does not seem like a bad idea. I'll likely be having Jimmy, Jota, and Doherty for a few weeks going forward. Second of all, they face Brighton, West Ham, Bournemouth, and Villa in the next four, and they are like the four best fixtures you could have in FPL right now, it seems, if you're the attacking side. Third, his form and his stats over the last four. So he's got 6 points, 6 points, 10 points, 12 points, which is incredible. He's had 7 chances inside the box. If you saw his goal against Spurs, he slots it home from 6 yards out. And it's not from a set piece or anything like that. It's just a normal open play goal. He's a right wing back who's playing next to Jimenez and Jota and Traore up front. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw him standing on like the 6 yard line, slotting it home. He's top for big chances, penalty area, touches in the opposition area, and shots on target. I'm literally just waiting to see who's going to blank in game week 31, and then I'll put Doherty in will probably be my transfer of the week. The final reason is I love how divisive his name is. The amount of times I'll get it wrong. Is it Doherty, Doherty, just call him Matty, I guess. Either way, he's in top form, and he's definitely a top pick going forward. Next up, you've got Sarr, 1.3% owned, 6.3 million. I did and I didn't want to put Sarr in this week. I think every Twitter thread, YouTube video, podcast is going to talk about Sarr and Alonso and Diogo Jota. So I recommended Jota last game week, but it's true, it's difficult to not look at Sarr after that insane Liverpool performance. He was in decent form before he got injured, scoring 32 points over 5 game weeks from game week 18 to 22. Game week 28 against Liverpool saw 4 attempts, 3 inside the box, 3 big chances, 2 goals against a Liverpool team that had conceded 3 goals over 11 game weeks. Sarr faces Palace away this game week, which is a decent fixture. And like I mentioned earlier, now is the time to start picking players who are at clubs fighting for something with their Premier status on line, and it could be a good time to switch to Sarr, especially if you're wanting to get off the likes of Traore or a Leicester player. Also, a side note is he also will not be blanking in game week 31. So like me, if you're trying to save that free hit chip, he's a pretty good option too. And then finally, Marcus Alonso, 2.9%, 6 million. The man we all loved, the forgotten man of the past, is looking something like his old self. Granted, a change of formation, so if Lampard goes back to 4 at the back, this could end his run immediately before it even really gets going. But over the last 2 game weeks where Alonso's played and been back in the team, he's the top for defenders in terms of goal attempts, 10 goal attempts, 5 attempts inside the box, top for penalty area touches, and of course, for goals, with 3 goals in 2 games for the left wing back. They've got Everton at home and Villa away in the next 2 games. So even if you don't trust Chelsea defensively, which granted I haven't this season, it's tough not to just look past some clean sheet potential there, but also the potential for Marcus Alonso and his attacking return. So that's going to be it for this game week, guys. Let me know in the comments below who your differentials are. Please join me for the stream on Friday around 12 o'clock UK time. We'll be having a look at Game Week 29, talking about who's going to be blanking in 31, talking about a potential double game week, and having a look at maybe some fan team stuff and who are we going to enter into the weekly tournament. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you could leave a like and subscribe, that would be very, very useful. I did not get upset, but I keep mentioning sometimes the numbers are going down. I'm not too sure what it is. Let me know if there's something I'm doing wrong in the comments below, or any suggestions that you see in the future videos as well, because you know it's our community. It's not, and I like to talk football and FPL with you. Maybe I'm doing it too long, too short. Maybe there's some other things you want to see. So let me know in the comments below. So thank you for watching, and as always, have a good